Osiris.
Under the scale, under the scale, under the scales, under the scale, under the scale, under the scales.
Hello, listeners. It's 2017, and it's cold, and I'm thinking about Mexico. That's right around the corner. Speaking of warm things, I recently was immersed in 94-degree salt water, very salty water, and I'm going to do it again as soon as I can. What am I talking about? Sensory deprivation flotation. That's what this episode is about. So part of my mission when creating the Under the Scales podcast was to go beyond the boundaries of my contact list and meet new people and embark on new adventures with members of the extended Phish audience. It's not always going to be about looking backwards or uncovering Phish mysteries. It's also about expanding horizons. This is my first of many episodes with someone I met solely through Under the Scales, and as you'll see, Tom Bazis is all about expanding horizons.
Under the scale, under the scale, under the scales, under the scale, under the scale, under the scales.
I'm here with Tom Bazis, and this is a Under the Scales field trip to Marlton, New Jersey. And I really want to thank Tom for welcoming me into his beautiful business here. You want to tell us the name of the business and the location for people?
Yeah, sure. We're Float SNJ, and we're located in Marlton. And believe me, it is with gratuity that I welcome you here. It's humbling to be able to offer my services to you.
The services were great. So what I just did was I went into a flotation tank. First time in my life. That's Tom's business. And we met on Twitter. I guess he's been a longtime Phish fan. Is that correct, Tom?
Actually, not that long. I'm incredibly new to the whole scene. But you know, the band has been instrumental, I guess, in my self-development and actualization. I'm glad that I didn't find them in my formative years, because I probably would have dropped out of life and gone on tour, and you know, I don't know where that would leave me right now, but
possibly
you know,
right to hear again.
Potentially, yeah. But you know, everything works out at the perfect time in the perfect way. I actually went to my first Phish show in 2013. So,
oh, okay.
You know, I had been circling them for a while. My brother was on tour. I have an older brother who's a half brother. 15 years my senior, who was on Phish tour. You know, my family thought that was a poor way to spend time and money, so I was sort of growing up with this, you know,
don't do that.
Don't do that. Dave's off running around following this band, wasting his life, you know, and so I didn't ever get into it. But then a couple years ago, you know, I decided, you know, now's the time, and I called my brother, and we went to our first Phish show in Atlantic City, and it totally expanded my understanding of what was possible musically, and thereby what was possible in life. You know. Well,
that's kind of what this is all about, actually.
It is.
And when I walk in, there's crystals, and there's writings about expanding your mind, and this whole your entire business, flotation tanks, is a way of opening doorways in your mind that wouldn't otherwise be open.
Right. I feel that any new and novel experience presented with appropriate intention can give a person an opportunity to gain perspective upon themselves, and thereby, you know, make decisions and changes in their life that are positively beneficial to them.
Well, that's great, especially in light of what I just did, which was participate in my first sensory deprivation float.
What do you have to say about that, Tom? Tell me about your experience a little bit.
Okay, well, I did. I went in with, well, first I should describe, Tom's business is absolutely beautiful. It's immaculate. You walk in and it's extremely welcoming and quiet, and there's beautiful music and tapestries and nice rugs and stuff. It's a very welcoming environment, and he's made these 3 incredible float rooms, and they each have their own themes. And so you go in, and first you take a shower. There's a shower in the room. You're entirely private. You undress, you take a shower, and then you step into these very exquisitely designed large tanks. So it's much less of a tank.
Yeah, I'm actually going to try to rename them, you know, flotation pools. This practice has been around since 1954, right? It was invented at Harvard by a neuroscientist, and it never gained popularity.
Was that Lilly?
It was John C. Lilly.
John Lilly, which is the Oysterhead did a song.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? And I'm actually about to get a big picture framed of Albert Hoffman, John C. Lilly, and Tim Leary together.
Wow.
And hang it somewhere here.
In the tank he's grooving, ever sifting, sometimes smoothing out the things that mean the world to Dr. John C.
I wonder if that was, to me, well, I have to ask Trey, but I wonder if that was Les Claypool's lyrics. Because I'm not positive Trey, he's never let me know that he knows that John C. Lilly was the flotation tank sensory deprivation guy.
Lilly was a little left of center. So, I feel like the reason this hasn't picked up as a practice is because of the presentation. Right. Initially, people were asking, their guests to get into things that look like coffins, or small mausoleums, or spaceship escape pods, or something of that nature. And it was actually my first Phish show. I knew that I was going to open a flotation center, but I didn't know what equipment I was going to use. And then during that first show, during the second set, specifically during the twist. Oh my God, anything's possible. Throw out everything that you knew, and and come up with something that hasn't been done before.
And so back to we can keep interweaving back to my experience. So my experience today was just that, a completely welcoming place. And yes, it's when the lights go out and the sound goes out, it's completely pitch black with no sound.
Yeah.
And yet, somehow you achieve that in a non-threatening looking place. I, for one, didn't want to get into one of those, tanks from that you saw in the movie Altered States with William Hurt.
How can you let go, when you have, when you're starting your experience with some restriction, or, you're creating some resistance to it?
Right.
And for me, that's, the definitive pinnacle or pivotal approach to this that is going to create flotation, not as just this, there's a couple of float centers, but something that is as big as Massage all across the country.
And that is being able to let go.
Right, because I feel like there's a lot of therapeutic benefit to that, right? This is literally a practice in surrendering to the flow of life, being present in the moment, understanding the separation between yourself and your mind, and then being able to sort of work with that separation in a way.
So I can see the light between me and my mind is a quote that I put into the song Light, and that's from the book by Eckhart Tolle.
Right.
I was going to try to remember for you.
I was wondering who you were talking.
Yeah, I still don't have the title in my head, but that's who.
It's Brave New World or The Power of Now, probably.
It's that. It was The Power of Now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Nice. Okay.
So
we arrived at it.
Sure.
I can see the light between me and my mind. I can feel memories fall behind. And the light is growing brighter now. And the light is growing brighter now. I see.
When you say this can catch on therapeutically, how do you think that being in a room, like enlighten the people that have never heard of a sensory deprivation tank. How can being in a room with no sound, no light, you don't feel anything either when you get into these tanks? That's the whole point, is that you're basically weightless because there's Epsom salts in the water, magnesium sulfate. to the point that the water is so dense, like the Dead Sea, that you have no choice but to float. And when you float and the water is the exact same temperature as your skin, you can actually lose track of where your body ends and the water begins. And I was beginning to have that happen.
Mm-hmm.
Frankly, when I first got into the tank, I was kind of like, I was disoriented. You know, I turned off the music and the lights possibly too soon.
Yeah.
And I thought that I was drifting and spinning in the tank a little bit, and I was going to hit the walls. When I realized that wasn't going to happen, I kind of chilled out and relaxed a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then it started getting very, very deep relaxation.
Right. You noticed that your muscles were, I feel so relaxed, and then you're like, no, I'm not. And then you sink into the water almost, but
Yes.
you don't go anywhere. And then you go, oh, I'm so relaxed. No, I'm not. And there's just these levels of it.
You're right.
Everybody spins one way or another. Either they feel like they're flipping head over feet, or they feel like they're rotating, clockwise or counterclockwise.
I was like I was going forward, like forward somersaults.
Right, but that is a first float phenomena, and it doesn't happen again. Which is very interesting.
That's
to me.
really weird.
A repeatable, discernible, hallucinatory sort of experience that almost everybody has and shares, but then it never reoccurs.
I see.
So I wonder what that is. The initial weightlessness, the initial adjustment to weightlessness, or something of that nature?
Yeah. Well, I interrupted your answer about why that's therapeutic.
I'm sorry, my apologies.
No, depriving yourself of sensory
input.
Why is that healthy?
Right. So we have 2,000 pounds of Epsom salt, which is magnesium sulfate heptahydrate dissolved in each one of our floating pools. So first and foremost, you're correcting any magnesium deficiency that you have. Magnesium is an essential mineral for over 300 enzymatic processes in the body, and our food supply is very stripped of it. Not only is our food supply stripped of it because of the way that things are farmed commercially, but our intestinal tract does a very poor job of absorbing magnesium. The hypothesis around here is that we used to be covered in dirt, which is high in magnesium, which absorbed through the skin. So the skin as an organ developed the ability to have this, and then your stomach didn't need to do it anymore. So first and foremost, you're correcting magnesium deficiency.
So you're absorbing, when I get into the tank, my skin absorbs magnesium.
Correct.
But it can't over-absorb it because the body knows how to deal with magnesium.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That I know about.
Yeah, there's not a situation where you can get too much magnesium that I'm aware of.
Okay, good.
Then those salts are also reducing swelling and inflammation throughout the entire body. So physiologically, you're removing the pressure off of the joints, and then you're reducing swelling and inflammation, which is the primary cause of pain.
So that's all the actual physical benefits.
Yeah.
Now, what's going on mentally?
Mentally, you're being forced to process about a terabyte of information every minute that you're out in the real world with all the light and the sound hitting your eyes and ears. When you're standing vertical, think about the thousands of physics calculations that need to happen every second to keep you vertical that engage every single muscle in your entire body.
Well, it's funny you say that. So I went to Carnegie Mellon. I lasted there 1 year. And the engineering candidates, of which I was one, we were treated to one of the top guys in robotics in the country. And I would love to be able to come up with his name, but I can't.
Mm-hmm.
But he came and spoke to us. And what he said was pretty much that. It was like he was talking about they had just won an award with his students, Carnegie Mellon seniors, who had made a robot walk like a human.
Right.
And he said, you won't believe the amount of computation required to do that.
Right.
And he said, because walking, if you think about it, it's a controlled fall.
Right.
And the time between standing upright and falling is like 1 second.
Yeah.
And so the robot has to process an incredible amount of stuff. First of all, it has to know where up is.
Right.
Which is bizarre. That's, we don't even think about it.
Right.
But so in effect, and he said just what you said just now, which is that as we walk, think about all the math and physics calculations that your brain is doing.
Right.
And it's an enormous amount.
Unbelievable. And every single muscle cell in your entire body is engaged in the process.
Wow. Although, obviously, we benefit from millions of years of evolution and walking.
Sure.
And so, obviously, that's been developed into specialized hardware.
What I don't understand, though, is that I have a hard time calculating a tip sometimes at a restaurant. So why can't I tap into this unbelievable computational power that I have available at my disposal, apparently?
Right. Well, we can't spin a spider web either.
Right. It's very true. So just removing that need to do that processing frees up about 90% of the power that your brain would otherwise be using. Right. So portions of the brain start to be able to shut down. It's not going to run if it doesn't need to. Additionally, you're producing cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine, adrenaline to keep your central nervous system engaged, to keep your mind processing the light and the sound and all that sensory input. But again, the body's efficient. When you turn it all off, you ramp down the production of these stress hormones, and they start to exit the bloodstream. If you were to take a vial of blood from somebody that gets out of the flotation pool, you'll notice that the cortisol has dropped significantly. There's almost no epinephrine or adrenaline. So, these things that are keeping us engaged, body and mind, these hormones, are gone, which allow us to relax deeply.
I don't have to give you any blood, do I?
No.
I was wondering what the catch was.
No. Wait, weren't we just talking about Billy Bob Thornton? Isn't there a vial of blood having to do with that?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
He wore
Angelina Jolie wore Billy Bob Thornton. If you could get me that vial of blood, I might keep it as a keepsake. Right.
Yeah, so we should say Billy Bob Thornton came up in the Mike concert.
Yeah.
We went to the Mike Gordon show last night,
Yeah.
and Tom and I were feet apart, and yet we didn't really say hi. We kind of we knew we were there.
Yeah, you were surrounded by a group. I hate to be the guy walking up and just making a cold approach. So.
Nonsense. But no, that was a good concert. So back to my experience.
Yes.
So then I got into the tank, and Tom had said that you should first sort of learn how to float and learn how to get the salt water out of your eyes if you have any in it, and do all that stuff. And if you're floating correctly, you shouldn't have your face wet, because salt can be attracted by that, and that feels strange. So I had this spray bottle that Tom has in all the rooms, and I used it, and then I had a towel, which I was grateful for, and then finally I sort of settled in, and then I turned off both the lights and the music, contrary to Tom's suggestion that first I try the lights off and leave the music as sort of an anchor for my senses, just to kind of settle in. And I wish I had done that, actually, because I went to full lights out, full sound off, and actually kind of just sort of felt like I'm a guy in a saltwater tank,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just sort of floating there, not really getting it, like, what's this all about? A little bit. I was willing to, put that thought away, because I know that something good could happen, and lots of people do have good benefits. So
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't writing it off.
Sure.
And yet I was kind of thinking, like, wow, I might be one of those people that this doesn't work for, or something.
Sure.
And then I think right on the edge of sleep, I was starting to get some, very, like you had said, I believe I went into extreme deep relaxation, where I kind of didn't know time was passing or anything. It was just, and so I definitely want to do it again, and I think for longer. I think I could probably really, really start to.
Right. Everybody's first time in, they say, I offer 60 and 90-minute flotation sessions, and people's first time in, they go, I'll just do 60, because they can't fathom the idea of just sitting there doing nothing for 90 minutes. The record here is 8 hours in sensory deprivation. She walked out, she didn't talk to anybody. She just kind of sat there for 20 minutes and, smiling and waved and walked out the door. But,
she let you know she was okay.
Yeah, it was an amazing experience for
Maybe
her.
her entire mind was erased after that experience.
Could you imagine? But that's an interesting thing about, what it can erase. If I'm having a conflict with somebody, I'll get into the flotation pool and I'll think about it, and I can't help but letting it go. You can't help but arriving at a much more peaceful place, right? Because the stress hormones are leaving.
Oh, okay.
Right? So if you think about where your mind state is in a period of stress,
right,
versus a period of calm, where do you make better decisions? Where do you make communications where you don't regret?
Right.
Right. You know, so learning where that space is, that mindset is, and then realizing that we can enter it at any time. A lot of people I notice will listen to Phish to get there. Oh, I had a horrible day. I'm gonna throw on whatever their show is, and they get there.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
And you know, that's what we're trying to present here to people that aren't necessarily capable of digesting, 30-minute long heady jams. Right.
Right. So this is another way of getting there.
Yeah.
Kind of.
I keep going back to it because this is a Phish podcast, but without what you guys have done and the community that you created, it would have been impossible to imagine what this place could be and how it could affect people.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
On your Twitter feed, which could you say the name?
Sure. It's at P-Nautic Express.
At P-Nautic Express.
Yeah.
And if you look at some of your past tweets, you seem to embrace Terence McKenna for one.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
So the time frame is as follows. Somebody introduced me to Joe Rogan. The first Joe Rogan episode that I heard was with Aubrey Marcus, and he was discussing his ayahuasca ceremony in the jungle.
Right.
They brought up the name Terence McKenna. I Googled Terence and instantly fell in love with that nasally intellectual style that he has.
So you had a kinship with him with regard to his because he sort of he loved natural psychedelics,
right,
and how they could open up the brain,
right,
in your mind,
right. And that's what I have an affinity towards primarily is these natural plant teachers that are here with us, and anytime that I interact with them, I come away, if I do so with the appropriate intent, as prescribed by Terence, I walk away better in some way.
Right. Now that's not automatically making any kind of connection between that and flotation.
Well, actually, yes. So I was a commercial banker for 12 years before I had found flotation, before I had found Phish, all this stuff. Right? And I was miserable. I didn't fit in. I was an inauthentic person because I was trying to figure out how to get, on the same page as these people.
Been there, by the way.
Yeah. And, it was tough. It was just really tough. I was living this life that I had not consciously chosen.
Yep.
And then, I started with Terence's prescription immediately after listening to him, 5 dried grams in silent darkness. I was doing this once a week for a year.
But that's the hero. That's the hero
Well,
dose.
that's what they say in terms of hero. What I've learned is that everybody has a slightly different platform of brain chemistry. So the amount of psilocybin that it takes me to get to a hypnagogic state is not the same as what it is going to take you to get there.
I would take just a tiny pinky full.
And I've eaten up to 9 grams.
Oh my God.
But, it's been an amazing experiences.
Right.
I literally got the idea for this while I, at 3 o'clock in the morning, drooling on my kitchen floor, muttering to myself, yes, I understand, but what am I going to do with my life? How can I bring this experience to my community in a way that won't leave me behind bars?
Right.
There was literally a whisper, open a flotation center.
Wow.
And then I got almost the full business plan, everything that I kind of
That's great.
needed. But it didn't materialize. I was working on it. And then something happened. I did a little bit of molecular mind manipulation at that show, and there was something that just unlocked there. And
well, that's fantastic, and it's worked for you because, as you say, you're basically open 10 to 10.
Yep.
7 days a week.
Yeah, 10 to 10:30. Our last guests are leaving at midnight. The business is doing fantastically well, but it's because of the intent that we're offering it.
Right.
Flotation is great. If you know what you're doing, you can get into any float tank and have the experience that you're looking for.
Right.
But
would you say the large amount of floaters are completely like me just then, just 100% sober?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the large amount, right?
Yeah.
But if you do something for your client's delight, whoever you're serving, if the intent is all for their delight, then it turns into something magical.
Right.
right?
Right. So the only experience that I have, and it's based on Hollywood, and I mentioned it before, to relate to combining like a psychoactive, psychotropic substance with a flotation tank is the movie Altered States from the 1980s with William Hurt.
We haven't had any proto-hominids emerge from the tanks yet, unfortunately. That would make my day.
Except he... so there is this thing, you know, like, and Terence McKenna even says it, that like when you know, ingest this stuff with care and be careful and learn slowly, the first place to go before trying new stuff is to the library, you know, to read about it and figure stuff out, what's going on. But he said, always do it with reverence to those who came before and the ancestors. And in a weird way, that's what that movie is like, sending him, you know, the other direction through evolution.
The psychedelic...
backwards down the number line.
Right, perfect. Yeah, excellent. I love it. I love it when it all ties together. The flotation experience is a miniature psychedelic experience.
Okay.
You know, I've seen people coming out of the float tank, sober people that have never done it in their lives, tripping. You know?
Wow.
Yeah, you know, you'll have that float. If you keep doing this, you'll have the float where you walk in sober and you come out and you're altered, you know, and you're that way for a little bit.
Wow. Well, so my experience today was, you know, I got to the edge of sleep where I might have even dozed off briefly. Cool. And at that moment, I was sort of almost felt like I could start, like, if I was in there longer, I think like I mentioned to you, that there was something kind of in the distance, and I couldn't discern it, and it was sort of green. I think it was getting sharper. And when I turned on the music, and Tom's music, the default music he has in there is kind of this sort of ethereal, sweeping landscape. You've probably heard it like in going to sleep tapes, and also like in yoga or meditation type stuff. And it's very nice, and for some reason it evoked these, like, I started getting some Vista type feeling. But that was also right when, and I also told this to Tom, or right when I got out of the tank, that I must have been in pretty close to sleep, because all of a sudden I felt like someone else had rippled the water. I thought someone was in there with me briefly, and that was kind of wacky.
Right. And it's your body jerking or making a movement that you're not aware of.
Right, I wasn't aware I'd moved because I'm weightless.
Right.
And yet this wave washes over me. So how did that happen? So
So you noticed that when the music was there, the visual became more intense, perhaps? So are you synesthetic normally?
So what does that mean?
So synesthesia. So when you see, you know, when you hear a sound and you see a color. Oh. You know, some people have the ability, and some people are all the time. They'll see the letter C as always chrome and hard. You know, so there's a different visual filter on it. But if you're hearing music and it's transgressing into the visual cortex, they call it synesthesia. Okay. Right. All right. You know, or if you...
Well, I'm going to say yes in a way, but maybe not for the reason you described. Okay. But I think what it was, again, the music was giving me... Because I was so much... like, you know how you're supposed to let go? Yeah. Right? I wasn't letting go. I was kind of thinking, like, I'm in a tank and I'm supposed to be relaxing and having this experience. So my brain was sort of doing that. Yeah. As soon as the music came on, that gave me something kind of a little bit to ride on, and my brain stopped doing those convolutions.
Yeah, the purists, you know, want you to put people in there with nothing. The purists into flotation are like, throw them in there, don't give them anything. Right. We're going to actually start rolling out guided meditations and like different choices that you can make, because I do believe that as you're acquainting with the process, the tool of the music isn't necessarily a bad thing to have. That's why I recommend that people leave it on a little bit longer than the lights too, because it, you know, smooths you into it. Yes. But on the reverse side, again, it is something just that satiates the mind. It allows the mind to have a job. When you're in there, the mind doesn't have a job, and then it starts to behave like a you know, spoiled child almost, or something like that. You know, it starts talking to you. Like, I can't get past 4.5 hours in the tank because it starts telling me things like, oh, the person that was supposed to get you out of the flotation pool on their way, got into a car accident on their way into float. You've
you
been
start
in there
getting
16 hours.
Oh my god!
Right.
So you start getting a little like some paranoid kind of.
Right.
But I mean, you're also the owner of this business, so you want to know who's coming in the front door,
right?
And if
right.
So
but I should be able to let all that go.
Really?
Right, because I get into the pool with one thing in mind, and then 4 hours later, my mind is telling me all sorts of other stuff, right? And it's not the commitment that I made in the beginning.
I see. Okay. Okay, so that's when you know it's time to get out, I guess.
Well, or I shouldn't. I'll get in at 8 o'clock at night, and I plan on spending the whole evening in there till 7 o'clock in the morning when somebody comes in to wake me up.
Really?
Right. That's like that's what I plan on doing. But at about 4 hours, I lose time completely.
And because it's so active, your brain is just going nuts.
Well, it's not, but it'll come back and it'll be like, hey, you've been here for 16 hours.
Okay, I see.
Right?
Okay.
And,
that's what you mean by the trick.
Yeah.
It's playing tricks on you.
Yeah, totally playing tricks on you.
Are you getting visual, like, hallucinations as well?
I get a little bit of visual hallucinations. I see a lot of purple smoke and purple fog.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll see star fields and stuff like that. Occasionally, I'll be able to get myself into a position where I feel like I'm floating down a river. I'll like trick myself into feeling like I'm moving, and then I'll see treetops passing over, but not clearly, just like shadow forms.
Okay, so no clear vision stuff.
Not me, but there's plenty of people that do report that they can build all sorts of stuff in there with their mind.
Right.
It's funny what you had brought up about being there initially saying, I'm not going to be able to do this isn't right for me, because that's a common theme here. We all tell ourselves these stories about how bad we are at things when we first try them.
Right.
What's that about?
Yeah, I guess. Well, it's just reluctance, change.
Yeah.
If you look at our branch evolutionarily, we're here for a reason.
Sure, absolutely.
And
every choice was made, yeah.
Right, and there's probably some like branches that died off because they took too many risks.
Right,
and
absolutely.
They weren't as averse to change.
Right, absolutely.
So we have it built in, the aversion to change. But you're right. That voice though is different. The one that says, "I'm going to suck at this."
Right.
That's, I think, more of a modern fabrication.
Does the band have that when they're on stage? Can they have that when they're on stage, creating something brand new every time?
Well, and I think that's a big thing that performers have to overcome.
Right.
And I would say that 32 years into it, they've figured out.
I would certainly imagine
how to deal with that. But
how do you overcome it in that first time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
This is important because everybody faces that all throughout their life, right?
Yeah.
So, and we tell ourselves stories.
Yeah. Well, that was a story.
Suck, like for me.
Yeah. Well, that was a story you were telling yourself, probably like you were an investment banker or a commercial banker, and you were writing loans, and you're seeing cash come in, and yet you were like, Tom, you suck. You should be. You know what I mean? Like that. Yeah. You're telling yourself a story, and you're thinking, I should do something else. And you're like, no, but you're good at this. Yeah. Like everything was telling you, don't change. And thank goodness you did.
Thank you. Yeah, thank goodness for me too. I don't know what I would be doing. Otherwise, it takes courage, and we need
probably fabulously wealthy, but fabulously unhappy.
Right. There you go. we need to learn how to tell ourselves different stories. How people come in here all the time, and I say, hey, why did you come in? And they say, I can't relax. And I say, why are you here then? If you can't relax, I came to relax. Well, if you can't do it, then why are you even trying?
I see. You engage you make them drop the I can't.
Right.
Immediately.
Right. Yeah. If I wanted to go to the beach with you on Friday, I wouldn't call you and say I can never go to the beach. I would call you and say, hey, let's go to the beach.
Right.
Right. So
right.
and that's us too. Like whatever language we use about ourselves becomes the reality that we live in. I feel like flotation gives us some space to look at the story that we tell ourselves.
Right. And the key is really relax.
Yeah.
Relax. The world will spin beside itself and suck you in with threats and hopes beyond compare. Relax. The world will spin beside itself and suck you in with threats and hopes beyond compare.
Right, because when you relax, everything's okay. Right, when you're present in the moment, there's no problem.
Yeah. Now, relaxation and letting go also means you don't have to do anything.
Right.
Right, and that's the tank makes that easy for you.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
because otherwise you have to learn the tools or take drugs to get there. But to me, the tank is very pure. I'm definitely going to do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome here at any time. I would love to have you in. It's my pleasure.
So, Tom, I really want to thank you. I had a wonderful experience today at Float New Jersey.
Float SNJ, yeah, Float Southern New Jersey, sure.
And is that also your website?
Yeah, floatsnj.com.
Okay, yeah, and come and float. Tom is a wonderful mentor, and you guys will really like it. 100% guaranteed.
Yeah, and there's actually a discount code for everybody listening. If you type Phish in all capitals during checkout, you'll get 20% off.
Nice. Very good. All right, and your Twitter again, one more time.
At P-Nautic Express.
At P-Nautic Express. All right, well, thank you so much, Tom.
Oh, my God, thank you so much for coming. It was a pleasure to be able to offer this.
And just let me tell you, Tom woke me up out of my float with the song Velvet Sea.
Thought it was appropriate.
Thanks for listening to Under the Scales, the podcast about Phish fans, their culture, and secrets, if we're lucky. Quick thank you to my producer, Mark Dowd, and my sister podcast, HF Pod. Some of the music you hear in my show is, of course, Phish, but also it's often my old band Amphibian with an F. Using songs Anthony Crizon and I wrote for our album, Skip the Goodbyes. Find him at njrecordingstudio.com. I'll interview you if you want as well. Go to underthescales.com and click the Tell Your Story button. If you're at all serious, your submission will definitely get to me. For other matters, write to me at tom@underthescales.com and follow our Twitter here at Under the Scales. See you next week.